when the seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the buzz and they left the buzz in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, it is that time. It's the Monday Club, the lunchtime edition, as Phil McGinley's calling it. Back to my old ways, you know. Doing Monday afternoons. Love it. And it's Easter Monday. Happy Easter, everyone, if that's what you say on Easter Monday. I don't even know. All it sounds to me like, though, Johnny, is it's a bank holiday. We're allowed a beer, right? Totally guilty. That's it, though. That's it, man. I'm cutting it after that, man.
It would seem Connor didn't get that memo, though.
I know. I mean, the young team, man, they're letting us down. Listen, Connor's walking on air right now because he did produce the best bit of patter we've had on the bus in a long, long time yesterday. The walking cheeseburger Alfredo Morelos. That is just patter beyond patter, young man. That was brilliant. And I'll get that clipped this afternoon. We'll make it a wee YouTube short anyway before that, all that good stuff. If you are on the bus right now, hit the like button. Why not? If you want to subscribe, it's free. Why not? As Pam pointed out, over 3,520 we're on now. Doing all right. The content's free. If you want to become a member, totally optional. You don't have to. I tried telling Phil McGinley this, but he is still one. Phil McGinley, Patrick McLaughlin, Stuart Miller, Stevie Kenny, 1888 CFC, Pam. Who else is there? There's loads. Boyce'S bus member, Stubbsy's Horse, Scott Cameron. If you want to do it, it's $1.99 a month. Totally optional. Don't you worry about that. It is, the content's going to be free. We're not going to disappear up that avenue of, putting paywalls and all that nonsense. Piesports.com. Hit that website. Use bus 1888 at the checkout and you'll get 12.5% off, and those pies are worth it. They've just had a big order from a certain Colombian striker this morning, so what can I say? Anyway, lads, it is a great time. Someone was in the chat already saying, I think it was Ian McGinley, saying, isn't it just great to be a Celt? Johnny, you've not been on yet since, obviously, the Derby day. We did a brilliant wee breakfast bar midweek, looking forward to it. You've been all over the world since then. Is that an Australian cricket top, first and foremost?
Well, it's an Australian top. I don't know if it's a cricket one, but I thought I'd put it on today in tribute to the finest Australian
Love
walking
it,
the
mate.
earth at this moment in time. So
Love it.
yeah. It possibly is a cricket one. I just got it when I was out in Australia about 4 years ago. So I'll stick that on the day.
I love it, John. It's a good look. Obviously, as I say, the chat was saying, isn't it great to be a Celt? Johnny, you tell us how you're feeling, because me, Connor, and Phil had the joy yesterday of reflecting and basking in Celtic's glory. So you take it away today, mate.
Oh, I'm feeling absolutely brilliant. And you're always going to be when you've pretty much just won the league, 12 points clear. You've just given Rangers a doing. The only thing that was disappointing, I think I put it on our chat, that I've never wanted to see, at least I don't think I have ever wanted to see a Rangers manager get so destroyed and broken as I want Beale to get.
It's
Unfortunately,
annoying. It's annoying he's under our skin that much, Johnny, eh? It's annoying because he is actually under my skin a bit now. I can't help it.
I mean, like, so when you think about it, I should have more of an issue with the likes of Walter Smith because of the pain that man caused me as a Celtic supporter. But I've got, I had a lot more respect for him than I would ever have for Beale. And I'm going to be honest with you, when Rangers appointed Beale, I thought, that could just be a good move for them. That was me with my rational head on. The rational head has been knocked right off me. I just want the man destroyed. I mean, he is just a sly, sleek Scunthorpe.
Well, we were doing a lot of contrasting and comparing. I don't know if you've seen any of yesterday. I do appreciate you've been travelling all over the world. You were sending us photos in the Boyce'S bus Bumblebee shirt from India. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you were able to catch any of the show yesterday, but we spoke about the contrasting and comparing of the two attitudes. Firstly, I think from a professional point of view, not that I am one to judge on professionalism, but I drink and drive in the bus. Let's put it that way. Metaphorically, please don't do that in real life. But obviously, when you contrast and compare the two, one is shining right now, but Beale's making Ange look even better than what maybe even Ange is. Do you know what I mean? Because he's just acting like such a bell end. And I think you're right. The pain that we're inflicting on him, it does come with that extra satisfaction when it's someone you want to get it right round. And I do think Michael Beale has fallen into that category. Before we go into slagging him for the rest of the show and the cheeseburger patter, which is still getting loads of love in the live chat, I mean, from a Celtic perspective, Johnny, as I said yesterday, the dust is now settled, and it very much so has. I've caught up on some of the phone-in that I like to listen to because I like hearing fans' point of views. I watched Ryan 118 last night. I watched the Celtic Way this morning with Tony. Tony's always pretty good. We like Tony Haggett on the bus. He's a legend. And Johnny, it's different when you get a different perspective of now beginning to sort of break down the performance, etc. The one narrative though that's very interesting and it's hard to shift is if Celtic are so poor and Rangers played so well and, in the words of Todd Cantwell, didn't actually lose, how can we still put 3 past them? But in fairness, in the cold light of day, Johnny, do you think it is fair comment to say Celtic did win, but maybe weren't at their best on Saturday?
Oh, there's no way we were anywhere near at our best. I mean, I think I put it in our chat that we started off at a pedestrian pace and somehow managed to get slower. I mean, there was little spells where I thought, all right, they've given themselves a rock up the arse. They're going to now really grab the game by the throat and go for it. But they were too short and too far between. But so we were nowhere near our best, and we were still. I know you were talking about it before the game that Ibrox, we weren't brilliant at Ibrox, weren't brilliant at Hampden when we beat them in the cup. Surely the real Celtics going to turn up for Saturday, and I don't think we did. We've done enough to win the game, and yeah, the 2 goals that a lot of Rangers supporters are saying we only scored because of their bad defending, which is true. It was shocking defending. But twice, Jota was ready for it. Jota was, he was anticipating it almost. He was already making a move on Suter before Suter made that pass back.
Good point.
And he was also on the move when that hopeless attempt at a clearance from, what's his name? Davies, yeah. the feeble attempt at putting the cross out for a corner and start with, but Jota was already chasing it in as well.
I mean, yeah, look,
That's right.
he's got good ball. He's got good ball control, doesn't he, Jota? With that.
I think you're right.
But I ain't got one down there.
I think when it comes to the levels of the players' corner, that's what you're saying. That's a brilliant point by Johnny, which we've not looked at quite yet. When you actually look, I know a lot of the narrative, and there's always various narratives that are going to try and spin in certain ways. I think when you look at the actual errors that led to Rangers conceding goals, if you listen to MSM, and that's basically what's happened. Rangers have made errors that have led to Celtic's goals. I definitely think when you look at the errors, Johnny's right, because we've got players of a different level, and that is not me being a patronising bastard, it's not me being, over the top. Jota is playing at a different level to a Ben. Is it Ben Davies? Is that his first at Ben?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
Aye. Like, he is another level from him as a footballer. John Souttar, Jota's another level from him as a footballer. This is the reality. That's not me trying to even be a prick, which, cold like a day fact, we got Jota from Benfica for just shy of £7 million. John Souttar came from Hearts on a free. Right? And that's, you look at that and you go, the chances of the freebie for Hearts being able to cope with a guy nearly £7 million from Benfica is unlikely. That's just facts. That's not me being rude about John Souttar or anything like that. So the guy who comes from Benfica for that money anticipates free transfers make mistakes. Right? And what he did, Connor, was read them. Kyogo anticipates. He reads mistakes coming. I never thought of it that way, Johnny, but you're absolutely right. We're all desperate to be in a position where in the media, well, not we. I mean, the media are so desperate to find the reasons why Rangers concede goals, and it's never because of the facts that are in the room. And the facts in the room are we have better players, much better players that we've had to make serious investment in to afford in the first place. That is the reality. And when it comes to basic errors, like a former Preston North End defender makes, and a former Hearts free transfer makes, don't be surprised when a Japanese international scores 2 goals, when a guy that nearly cost $7 million gets a goal as well. Is that fair?
It's just simple economics, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was obviously mistakes in there, but it was anticipating the mistakes, and it's just that level of player who can think just a little bit further ahead of what's actually happening. He can almost anticipate what. Not what I'm not saying he sat there saying I know he's going to make this mistake, but he's going to put himself in a position where if the mistake's made, I'm going to be there to take advantage of it. And if the mistake's not made, then he's not lost anything, has he? It's just good football players, good football and brain, and putting it into action.
Take it away, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, what David Kelly's saying there is just we spend our money better. Look, the John Souttar to Rangers was a bit of a bizarre one in my opinion. Obviously, he was leaving on a free, so he had to go somewhere, and Rangers was probably the best option he had. But if you look back at that season where he was at Rangers, at Hearts, Jota and Kyogo were ripping them apart all season. Whenever we played Hearts, we gave them hiding a good couple of times, and just rinsing them time and time again. So for Rangers to not even consider that when making the signing just seems like negligence. And look, long may it continue on their side, because I couldn't give a fuck. Sign as many staunch, players for your wee orange brothers as you want, as we will take advantage. But the mainstream media never want to give Celtic the credit that they rightly deserve, especially against Rangers, because then we go back to the days that Celtic are miles clear of Rangers, and it kind of looks like it's not fair, and it's not fair on poor little old Rangers. But that's kind of just the way that it is. Celtic are miles clear. Even on our worst day, we are still better than them. They still can't beat us. they can play to their strengths and try and be as hard and stodgy as possible, and they still can't get a
Blood
result
and
against us.
thunder.
Blood and thunder, and look, with that AC/DC kit, maybe they should start wearing that to get him a bit more of it. But it's funny because they're just fucking. I'm waffling now, but we all.
Wouldn't be like you.
I know, wouldn't it be like me? Yeah, look, I put in a man of the match performance last night. What more do you want from me? I'm only human.
Connor, you're on fire now, just like Kyogo. We spoke about Kyogo yesterday, Johnny. And I think you're in a current vein of form, a wee bit like us, to be totally honest with you. Jota, we never focused on as much. And whilst I've probably said he played for Benfica about 14 times already this show, Johnny, you look at someone like that and you go, he has made an impact this year. I think he's one of those folk who, if he doesn't play a 7 or an 8 out of 10, instantly eyes turn on him as if he's struggling a bit. He's held to a higher standard because of the level he's naturally at. Is that fair? I think for me, he's my favourite in the Celtic team, right? And I've said that a few times. He is my favourite player of them all. There is plenty of argument for others. That's fine. If I was to pick, I think Jota's my favourite player. He has impacts in big games. Bear in mind, Champions League. Who scored one of Celtic's only 2 goals? Jota. Against them, who scored goals? Jota. I mean, he's been brilliant.
Jota scored 2 in the Champions League.
Did he?
Yeah, he scored one against RB Leipzig.
Real Madrid, I forgot the Real Madrid one. Oh, you're right, he scored 2 in the Champions League.
A belter free kick against Real Madrid.
Aye, I over-celebrated that, to be honest.
We were 5-0 down by that point, weren't we?
I was like, come on,
it was kind of a half celebration. He jumped up and he went, yeah, so then as he landed, he goes, oh fuck, he goes, why did I celebrate that?
But Johnny, he's definitely showing for us in the big games. He is definitely someone you can count on. I think he's a player of the level I'm looking for Celtic now to shop in. If you can get players at that sort of a price and available and willing, I think he's a perfect signing for Celtic. He's been so far and a template going forward.
Oh, without doubt. I mean, like you just said there, he turns up in the big games. He's been, how many goals has he scored against Rangers now? He's scored twice already this season. Like I said, that one in the 4-0 game at the start of the season when he ran through that chip, which was just sublime. I mean, I've said already before in here, I can't understand how we, A, got him from Benfica, and B, got him for the money that we got him for, because at the minute, he's shown to be an absolute steal. When you consider, we spent, 6.75 to get him, and Rangers spent the same kind of money to get Ryan Kent.
Yeah, I think they did it over like a 400-year deal or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they'll probably still be paying for him.
I think they paid up front a £5 and a pair of Donny socks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but when you compare the two players, I mean, Kent. They've been telling us for the last 2 years Kent's going to turn up and destroy us, and he doesn't even barely turn up. He comes along, puts a shirt on, and wanders around the park and does nothing.
There's the Ryan Kent cycle, if you're unaware, and it's a graphic, and it's true. It's true as God. It's Ryan Kent plays okay for 1 or 2 games, best player in the league, plays shite for 6 or 7 months, rinse and repeat. That's the Ryan Kent cycle right there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's I mean, to be honest, I don't even see the relevance in bringing Ryan Kent into the debate. I think when you're looking at Jota, you're wanting to compare him against good players.
Oh yeah.
Players of actual quality. And I think when you look at what he's done in the bigger occasions, I think David Kelly is always fucking. I must bring up his comments about 1 million times a show these days, David. You may as well just jump on the bus, mate. But he says, it's the consistency is maybe still not quite found yet. I think it's very difficult to ever get a completely consistent winger the way you can get a consistent central midfielder, for example. I don't know, wingers they're a different breed.
Different breed,
yeah, but notwithstanding that, I think when you actually look at his goal contributions, goals and assists, and his end product in the big games, that's where I would judge him. I would say he's top. And I think we're lucky to have someone like Jota. But I also like to think that gives Celtic, it should give you impetus to go, Do you know what? We spent a wee bit more there. You know, we pushed the boat out. 6.5 million, 6.8 million, whatever it was. Well, look what it's brought you in. The facts don't lie, and it's not always about the actual fee. But if there has been a reluctance of Celtic to spend upwards of £5 million on a footballer, then surely examples like Jota can only sort of increase, because let's just say, for argument's sake, it's a Monday afternoon, lads. We can have any sort of debate. We can go down as many rabbit holes as you want today, by the way. Not Easter bunny holes, but you know what I mean. And Connor, how much do Celtic, if there were a bid to come in for Jota, where do they start the negotiations at for a player like that cost us 6.8 million last summer?
Well, it's a bit of a tricky one, because as we've seen under this new Celtic regime, if you want to be that, the players aren't necessarily going for massive profit, not the kind of profit we used to, like we had with, Dembele's and Kieran Tierney's and that. And look, I'm not comparing them as players with, Jakimic and Juranovic, but all I'm saying is that I'd like to think that a player who got to a semi-final of a World Cup and finished third place and was a consistent player for Celtic and won, a cup double the year before with us, and had scored in Europa League with all these other things. All of those things together, no matter how good or how bad a player he was, with your opinion, that still should be worth, I'd say, a lot more than 7 to 10 million pounds. That's at least worth 12 to 15 in my eyes. But with Jota, I guess because he is more of a flair player and he does have, the stats, the goals, the performances, the silkiness to back up, and the fact that, look, I think players' nationalities also play into how much money you can get for them. So, he's a Portuguese superstar for us, so that is worth a fair few bob. But in my opinion, with him, he's the best winger I've seen at Celtic in a long time, and he's so integral with this team. I don't think we can let him go for anything less than 25 to 30 million.
Oh, I love it, mate. I love it.
Anything less than that, right? I personally want Ange to stick the nut on whoever the fuck makes that offer.
I think what you've got to think there, though, it also is going to really depend on what market's coming in for him. English Premiership, yeah, they should be spending that kind of money. But if you look at Giakoumakis and Juranovic, who were both internationals, but both went to, one went to America and one to Germany. And I don't think German teams are really what you would call renowned at throwing money around, are they?
Johnny, I think Juranovic was either the top or the second top biggest transfer in the Bundesliga in January.
And we got how much for him?
7.5 million or something.
7.5 million.
I think it'll rise to 10 now with his performances or whatever, but still, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's still not a lot of money.
To get that kind of 25 to 30 million money that you're talking about, Connor, which I agree with you, by the way, you're really needing it to be a Premiership team coming in to spend that kind of money, because they'll spend that kind of money on players that have only got half the talent that Jota's got.
Well, that's the thing that I say. I say that that's the thing with the Premier League. I feel like the Premier League has kind of ruined football with the money they can just throw around willy-nilly. They're paying, I think, who was it, Nottingham Forest paid £50 million for a fucking nobody for Wolves. It's ridiculous. Southampton, I think, who was it? Was it David Logue, your boy, was saying Southampton had paid fucking crazy amounts of money for like players for the Man City B team or whatever, and they weren't even getting a game.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that. Aye, so the teams in there have got the money gears. That is, unless we're maybe thinking too inside the box, right? With regards to the only league you can go to for any kind of decent amount of money is the Premier League. What about Spain? What about the La Liga?
I don't think any of the clubs can keep up with the EPL right now. I've got a different wee take now, because Balls to the Walls has kind of brought up something that's triggered a wee thought in my mind, right? Johnny, you'll like this. So, you'll have seen the side-by-side video of Jota's goal, where it looks almost identical to Henrik's, right? Against them, and it was Henrik's 50th of that season. levels, by the way.
I've not seen the side-by-side video, but I obviously remember the
Oh,
goals.
they're very good. Honestly, Johnny, they're pretty identical, to be totally honest. It's brilliant. Anyway, I actually have now got another Celtic Rangers memory that has been triggered thanks to Balls to the Walls 87, who's coming, right? When Jota gets the ball, his desire to get it before that old, McGregor was just brilliant to watch. Did we see something very similar to when Gary Hooper retired Davy Weir? Remember that? His first touch, where he just megs him and then he scores, and I went, that's him. That's Davy Weir done. You knew it straight away. You went, he is now been found out that, father time waits on no one, Johnny, right? It waits on no one. I think we've seen a similar moment. We knew then. We knew with Davy Weir that second. I remember when Hooper took that first touch, and it was an outstanding first touch, nearly as good as Matt O'Reilly's for that first goal. But that touch that Gary Hooper did 10 years ago, I remember watching Davy Weir and thinking, that's your racer's run, big boy. I think we may have seen the beginning of the end now for Alan McGregor once and for all. And by the way, they can call him Shagger and Kling, all that bollocks all they want. For all he has been a good goalkeeper, I will not be sad to see the back of the world's angriest man.
No, we won't be sorry. But again, the writing was on the wall last year. I mean, nobody's going to sit there and be able to tell me that when he came on for his 30-second cameo in the Scottish Cup final last year, that was meant to be his farewell. And I don't know what happened. Maybe they had somebody lined up to sign and it fell through or whatever, but all of a sudden he's been given another year. Just where did that come from? I mean, he was done last year. I mean,
do you think they were pinning their hopes on McLaughlin?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think it's hard to even find an argument for that. I mean, at no point has he had a career remotely compelling to be enough to go, that'd be your number one going forward. I don't know.
When you're scraping the bottom of the biscuit tin, there's only so many options you have.
Yeah, we say McLaughlin's no youngster either, though, is he? I mean, he's about 35, is he not?
No. I thought he was younger than that.
I don't know. No, I think he's in his 30s anyway.
Yeah.
But again, I just think from a McGregor point of view, I mean, I've never seen a goalkeeper run to the halfway line as many times as this guy, right? And he just sprints out his box all the time when the ball's dead, just to shout at folk. He's mad.
Did you see him getting it tight to the ball boys in that game the other day?
No.
See, right, obviously the ball boys fucking love winding up McGregor. Ever since the 3-0 last season, the ball boys have just been getting
so
to McGregor tight. Oh, it's easy. It's like taking candy for a baby, a big orange baby. But the ball boys had the ball and they're sitting on his wee stool and the ball's at his feet, and the ball boy picks the ball up and is like that, and he's not giving it to him. And McGregor, there's somebody got like freeze frame footage of it. I don't know how. You'd have to go and look it back. And he's holding the ball, but he's got his bottle of Lucozade spot in his hand. As he grabs the bottle, it looks like he squishes the ball boy with Lucozade. You're like, what are you doing? You absolute fucking fatty. You're like, you're just so angry.
I've not seen that.
There's the guy on Twitter. He's got like the sin-soaked loving heathen or something. He's got a video of it. You can check it on Twitter.
Oh, I'll need to see that. I mean, it was in the League Cup final. Do you remember? He just volleyed the ball as hard as he could at the Celtic fans at one point as well. He absolutely rifled it. There was 2 balls in the pitch, so the spare just fucking runs up, absolutely hammers it into the Celtic fans. I'm like, that anger has just been it became parody almost now, because you do, Johnny, I think, get to a stage where as I say, if your race is run and Father Time's caught up, that frustration's got to be there. He's came out for that ball with Jota. As you were talking about at the start, the anticipation's fantastic for Jota, but also there's always moments in time where that's going to be like the lasting memory. I think that is when you go, that's why he retired, and he'll retire at the end of the season now, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the thing is, with that one, McGregor would have been as well just standing in the spot he was at when Suter first passed it to him, because you knew as soon as that ball went back, there was only one person getting that ball, and there was only one thing McGregor could do to stop it, and that would have been to take him down, give away a penalty kick, get sent off. So, he was on he was on a loser right from the second Stuart decided that ball was going back into the penalty box and made an arse of it.
I think I seen Captain Tom walk a bit faster in his garden than I seen Alan McGregor trying to bat for that ball.
I don't know what you've been putting in your Cocoa Pops these days, mate, but honestly, your pattern is on fire, Connor.
You got some script writer there, Connor, I'll tell you.
It must be a script writer. Ever since your mom busting at the back of that room, mate, your confidence has escalated. Anyway, I was listening, as you always know, I like to listen to the old talk sport in the morning, and I know folk will be in the comments going, that's tragic. I like it in the morning with Jim White and Simon Jordan, right? I do. And they focused a wee 10-minute segment, which is probably 10 minutes more than they normally do, to the Celtic Rangers game. And I always like Simon Jordan's points of view because I don't think I would ever enjoy a pint with him. I don't think I would like his politics. Not that I'm particularly political myself, but I just don't think we and him would get on. However, the one thing I do admire is someone who just tells the truth and doesn't, isn't swayed emotionally by anything. He spoke about Ange, and he said the one thing he feels about Postecoglou was at the start, he says we had so many people phoning saying that basically phoning TalkSport saying Ange who, etc. I think even one of the pundits, one of the presenters, who was it? Alan Brazil. He'd said it as well. But when it comes to Ange, Simon Jordan says, I actually phoned two different people. He says, I'm not naming it. He says, but one of them was Gordon Strachan. He says, Gordon Strachan said to me, I know about this guy as well. He goes, watch him go. You'll do brilliant. So I that was quite insightful. Then Jordan said, one thing he's picked up on, he says, is the vibe I get from Ange Postecoglou is, why everyone thinks everything is born and ends in the EPL. He says, I do think he will end up there and his direction of travel will take him there eventually. He says, but do not think this guy will be joining relegation fodder in the English Premier League. Now, Simon Jordan slags off, it's Scottish football, as it were, or not slags off, but doesn't have a high regard for it. Comes to our manager, it's quite obvious his opinion is completely different on him. And he's saying, that guy won't be going to, he says, remember Brighton? He basically distanced himself from that for day one. He went Leicester City, they could ask him, he goes, he's never going to go there. He goes, he'll have another tilt at that Champions League with Celtic. He goes, and the only way he sees Ange Postecoglou leaving us would be if it was a club, I think Tottenham or above. I'm paraphrasing him a bit here, but that's what he'd kind of said. And I think that's interesting to see that perspective from one of the leading, let's be honest, he's one of the leading broadcasters now in English football and boxing or whatever Jordan is. And if he's saying that's sort of the prism he's looking at Ange through, I think we take that on board and start going, maybe, because Brendan left for Leicester, I've always felt we were more vulnerable to a manager. Do you know what I mean? Like leaving for maybe a club we don't think has the reputation or the size and the gravitas of Celtic. And I've always said, once bitten, twice is shy, etc. So, if it could happen with Brendan, it could happen with Ange.
Yeah, but the question is, the thing you asked there, sorry to butt in on you, Russell, there, but the thing you asked about Rodgers is, if Rodgers was getting what he wanted or most of what he wanted, do you think he'd have jumped for Leicester City mid-season in February? Because I don't think he would have. If he was getting, we all know that he was getting players. They were getting players signed that he didn't even know who they were. When they signed Schved, he basically said, "Oh yeah, he's a winger. Like I need another winger. I've got plenty of them." He basically didn't know who he was. He didn't know who he was signing, so he didn't sign him. And there was at least two players that we know he wanted, three in fact that he wanted, didn't get. So there was obviously big cracks there between Rodgers and the board. And he wanted to stay to the end of the season, didn't he? But Leicester said, it's now or it's never.
That's
so
true. Everything you're saying right there.
Take it now. So that's David, the reason he jumped to Leicester.
Johnny, the thing is, I nearly called you David there. I do that all the time. Johnny, when it comes to that then, okay, so far it looks from our eyes right now that Ange has been given what he's wanted so far. And that potentially will carry on this summer. But I would imagine what Ange wants this summer will look a hell of a lot differently from what he's wanted the previous two, if that makes sense. I think now it's a case of we need to up the game a wee bit here. And to be fair, I think we're in a position we can do that and support him. And with that in mind, why would he want to leave, Johnny? Why would you want to leave Celtic? I think, you have a crack at the Champions League and you're in season 3 of a squad you've moulded with tools you've wanted to use to be given, etc., and gotten players of a better level each window you've had, i.e. look at Alistair Johnston as an upgrade at the right back, for example. So if you're continually been improving, why wouldn't you want that second crack at the Champions League? Why would you go down to a league where right now, let's be honest, the average tenure there must be dropping all the time? Some clubs sack 2 managers in the same season. There's no security down there. There's no guarantee of success. There's a hell of a lot of money in it, don't get me wrong, and I get that. But I also think, Ange, when you look at his track record, he's liked making waves and being the big fish, if you like, do you know what I mean, in smaller ponds. I think he will eventually end up in the English Premier League. But I don't know, I was just listening to that today. It was quite interesting to hear that English sort of perspective not being quite as disparaging towards a Scottish football manager as what I'm accustomed to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason he would want to go down there, in my opinion, and this is what I think he should be thinking, was if he is going to go down there, and I don't think it'll be this summer anyway, unless it was. I mean, why you just said why would you go to Chelsea? They sacked 2 managers this year, and all they've done with one of them is make him a multi-millionaire after 31 games. But if he wanted to go down to the Premiership, he would surely want to go to a major team and a major, and I'm talking about them that are challenging for the top 4 every year. And there's not too many of them, really, is there? Liverpool, Man City, maybe Man United, although I think they'll be looking for a new manager anytime soon. I think they're quite happy with their man. Chelsea, why would you want to go to Chelsea? I mean, that is an absolute basket case of a club. And they've always had a reputation for sacking managers, even when they were winning things. Ancelotti won. Did he not win the Champions League? Still get sacked, or he won the cup in the league, got sacked. So I don't think he'd want to go down to England except for a top club. Certainly, as Simon Jordan said, I didn't hear it. I've seen it online. I read it online before we came on here. He's not going to want to go to a team that's relegation fodder or have a look at West Ham last year. Qualified for the Europa League, been crap this year. So too many yo-yo teams down in England where they might not get yo-yoed into relegation, but they flirt. They flirt with the top 6. The following year they flirt with the bottom 3, and he doesn't want to be going to a club like that. No. I mean, he's all about planning. He's all about building things, and you don't get a chance to build. Because you can hardly build something with Lego down in the Premiership at the minute.
Connor, this is the thing though. Whilst the debate will always go on, I'm seeing the comments coming in and I'm beginning to think of a different discussion now with regards to Ange. What does Celtic do, not just from our point of view, right, we want the team improved and we want Ange to be given even more autonomy and more money to spend, etc. Of course we do. But in terms of actually Ange as the individual, he's on a rolling contract at Celtic. He is right now he can go anytime he wants. He can walk. He is not tied down, and Celtic don't really get much financial reward were he to want to go to one of the clubs. We don't think he does, but if he were to. How important do you think this summer we send that message out, we mean business this time? And it's not being reactionary. It's not getting Brendan Rodgers in because Rangers are back in the league and suddenly we need to get fans back on board after a 2-year experiment of Ronnie Dyler getting players forced upon him like Colin Kazim Richards and Carlton Coles. And that was reactionary getting Rodgers in to get everyone back on side, right? End of. And it was the right, of course, it was an amazing appointment, but it was reactionary. How big a statement would it be after the 2 years of bliss under Ange so far, domestically anyway? How good would it be to read the news, Ange signs new 3, 4, 5-year deal, whatever it may be?
Oh, it'd be amazing. It'd just be like the cherry on top of the season we've had. If we were to win the treble at the end of that game, rather than announcing, Neil Lennon has been re-signed as the, manager, if after, as soon as we lift that trophy, an hour, 2 hours later, and just signed a 4-year contract, that would just be some of the best news we've had all season, be even more of a reason to celebrate the past achievements we had for this year. It's imperative that we do tie him down. I don't know if we will. I don't know if Ange is wanting to sign a longer contract. The way I would, obviously, we can't, this is hypothetical, obviously, but the way I would phrase it to him would say, you are too valuable to this club to let you go for absolutely nothing and to just leave whenever you want. You can leave, if you would like, to go to pastures greener, or whatever the fuck. But you have to sign this contract so that we can get something back for you leaving. Because Ange Postecoglou, right now with Celtic, is building a footballing dynasty in front of our very eyes. And I don't want it to end anytime soon. He's alluded to the fact that he wants to be here for longer, whether he means another season or another 2 or 3 seasons. But, he said, he's like, I think you'll be surprised how long I'm here for. He just just covered it with the quotes, and you're just like, just sign a contract, big boy, please. Please stay with us. Please give us that security, and that, we can take a breath and say, right, here, we don't need to worry about these fucking articles coming every week linking them with
Well, it's not
Leicester
just
jobs, Chelsea
that.
jobs.
What a message it is, Connor, though, for players potentially joining.
Saying this guy's here, he's here for the long run, he's here to help you develop as a footballer and to steer your career in the right path. Because you look at some of the, we were talking about yesterday, look what he's done for Joe Hart. Joe Hart looked like he was going to just fade into obscurity until he came to Celtic, and then he was, third choice at Burnley, he was third choice at Tottenham, Nuno Espirito Santo, although he hardly had a good time when he went to Tottenham, said to him, like, your body is broken, you can't play football anymore. Then he comes up to Celtic, wins a cup double in his first season, makes tremendous amounts of saves, gets clean sheets, becomes an integral part of the squad and is a leader, and that's all down to Ange, whether it was forced upon him or whether he decided to go for it himself. He had a massive hand in remoulding and shaping the kind of career that Joe Hart has had at Celtic so far. So we need to just get him fully committed to Celtic and to, into kind of rubber stamp the fact that he is here and that he isn't going anywhere, to kind of just bat away these vultures that we know are going to be circling. So I feel like it's kind of more to put the supporters' mind at ease and to put out a warning to the league saying, oh yeah, you won't rid him because he's pumping you every week. Well, watch this, he's here for another 3 seasons.
Yeah, for me personally, I just think, Johnny, it's one of those ones where he's an asset, he's earning it now. I would offer him a new deal in the summer, get it done, and I think it sends the right shockwaves. It doesn't mean, anyone's talking about him actually wanting to leave or anything like that. It's just business savvy that you tie down your assets. Now, let's talk about that as well, because we've now got players that will be 2 years into their tenure at Celtic, Johnny. A lot of the guys that joined, we've been so impressed with, let's be honest. They've been unpleasantly surprised on a few occasions, which highlights our ignorance to other leagues at times, our lack of knowledge, and also shows you how much value you can still get in the transfer market, surprisingly, in this day and age where there's so many overinflated fees that you see. And then sometimes you see Celtic signings and they're, everyone seems to be around 1 to 3 million quid. It's been fucking brilliant, right? And it's like, wow, okay, this is new. We're now going to be into Kyogo's 3rd season. We're going to be into Hatate's 3rd season, albeit he joined midway through. But sometimes these assets, we'll need to then revisit that as well. This isn't me being doom and gloom, by the way. This is a healthy conversation. This is positions of strength, looking at what you've got, looking at what's got you to this level and securing it long term. For me, I think there will be discussions this summer with some players to find out where they're at, because Celtic are always going to be susceptible, Johnny, to bids for players and having to accept it because such as the financial incomings of TV money in Scotland, etc., that you're going to have to sometimes sell players if you're not going to be in the Champions League, for example, regularly. I think that we've got so many good players now at that club. Over the next 12 months, we do need to keep their minds focused on Celtic. And to do that, might just have to accept sometimes players will want that done in way of improved wages. That is something that comes when you get good players and then you want to keep all the good players. This is nothing new. This isn't us reinventing the wheel. Everyone will look at Kyogo, for example, and go, but he's lovely. He's just so nice. I'm like, yeah, he's still the same as anyone else in life. You know, he's ambitious. He wants to do well. There is players, I think, in that team, once you enter the third year of their spell at Celtic, we then need to start looking at how do we tie them down as well. I think that'll be just as important as our recruitment this summer.
Oh, definitely. And also, I heard you talking with Terry on Saturday night, obviously with the 5-year deals. They all seem to sign 5-year deals. And I've said it before, if we go back to Ange and his rolling contract, what does Ange say to these guys that gets them to sign 5-year deals when he's on a rolling contract? And I know people say he could walk out the door tomorrow. Well, in theory, he can, but also he can't. He could walk out the door tomorrow, but he couldn't start working for another club until for a full year because it's the rolling contract. So effectively, he's on a new contract every morning when he wakes up.
That's true. That's
Going
true.
back to the players, like say with the 5-year deals, yeah. When we start entering towards a 3rd-year deal, have a chat with the guys. Sit them down with their agents, whatever. Find out what their plans are. Do they intend staying? Do they want to pay a rise to stay? Or are they happy to stay where they are because they're planning on moving on after the 2 years? Or once the contract's completed? I think we've got one at the minute that I think might be moving on in the summer, and that's Abada. Don't think that's any surprise to anybody. I think there's noises being made there. I don't know how true it is. I read on one article today somewhere online saying that, don't know where they've got their information from, but they're claiming that Abada and Ange have actually fell out. Don't know how true that is, how accurate it is.
I've not heard that.
Oh, it was just one of these ones that pops up on the internet when you're browsing through, and I couldn't even get back to it if I really wanted to. But there has been noises that he's not. I wouldn't go as far as to say he's not happy, but he's maybe looking across that garden fence.
Wow.
And there's apparently this team's interested. Of course, there's going to be teams interested. And he's a good player. His goals record is good. His assists is good. Teams are going to have been having a look at him and think, oh well, if we go in there with a cheeky little £5 million bid, will we get him? And he might also be interested in that as well. So you need to speak to them. You need to tie them down. 5-year contracts are brilliant things. But like Terry did say on Saturday night, it's really a 3-year contract in real terms. Because who was it? Was it Arsenal that wouldn't let a player go less than 2 years into their contract? 2 years left of their contract. At one point, I think it was Arsenal. Once they got to less than 2 years, they had the talk with the guys, and if that player gave any indication that he was wanting to move on, boom, he was gone.
Yeah, which is absolutely fine, Connor. I mean, at the end of the day, all I'm saying is, I just think as we grow as a team and as people start finding out their own worth and they start going, do you know what? I've been pretty important here in the last 2 years. I've been pretty substantial in Celtic reaching Champions League football, for example, for 2 years. I've been a pretty big factor in Celtic winning all the 5 trophies in 2 years. That's the wish. That's the dream. Of course, they're going to go like, do you want me to stay or not? Because there's a million clubs sniffing. Agents are constantly in players' ears these days. I just think that'll be an important factor this summer for us, will be tying some of these guys down just as much as bringing in players to improve the first team as well. That's not negativity. That's reality. And by the way, it's a compliment to the boys over the last 2 years who've came in and made such an impression. Let's be real here. This is an absolute compliment to these guys. And it'd be absolute remiss of Celtic not to be looking at certain players and going, "We should tie him down. We've got a live one there." That's good. It'd be savvy, and I think we're in a position right now. We need, as I keep saying, when you're in a position of strength for the first time in the last 20 years, build on it. Don't just get it to a level, let it digress, regress, and then start trying to build it again. See, when we're here, it's easier to build from that position in the first place when you're higher, you know. And right now, Celtic have found themselves in a fantastic space. Loads of really good players that have been brought in, and for me, Johnny, it's just I just look at it and go, that comes with, I don't know what Connor's doing with hiding for that camera, by the way. But for me, it's just tie the manager down, tie your assets down, your best players as well.
It'd be neglect to do anything else. You know, I've said before, Ange should be tied down to a longer term contract. Has he been offered it? We don't even know. Has he been offered a long term deal, and he's just said, "No, I'm happy to stay on what I am." There's been no whispers as to whether he has, but I do think to let him continue as he is without at least asking would be gross negligence on Celtic's board's part, and also it'd be negligence to just let players drift along. Great, get them on a 5-year deal, but just to let them drift to the end of it and not revisit it at the halfway stage, if you like, would also be negligence, because we need to know what these guys are. Because as I said, Ange is a planner. Ange doesn't just react. He had to react when he first came in, but he's a planner. That's what he wants. He wants to build things. He said it himself. So they've got to be looked at because they need to know what the future is going to hold.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think you're absolutely right. This is the beauty of it, Connor, because, again, it goes back to complimenting the manager that we've got in place right now, because I agree. I think he is someone that's going to have forecasted, looked ahead. He's looked at windows. I think, for example, you look at this January window and how Ange had read that in advance. Giakoumakis, he's going to be a problem. He'll go. Juranovic, he's going to be a problem. He'll go. So, guys like Alistair Johnston and don't just arrive in your lap, Connor, right? This wasn't hash-bash signings. This was something that was identified in advance, ahead of players he had a feeling or a vibe for that may have to be let go of, that we as fans couldn't really fathom. Well, most fans couldn't fathom Juranovic. I could. But you know what I mean? I think that sort of pre-planning by Ange and that foresight is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's as he said. I think he's already said that he plans 6-12 months in advance, and that's brilliant because it shows he's not a reactionary type of manager. He has the things in place for when certain things happen, players leave or certain players are injured or this player's contract running out, whatever. He's got contingencies ready for all these situations, and he's probably got things up his sleeve that we haven't even fathomed yet for that could potentially happen. He's probably got a big giant filing cabinet listed A to Z plans that could happen for the future. Now, I might be giving him a wee bit too much, not too much credit, but being hyperbolic with that. But no, it's brilliant. It's just a testament to the man that he is. He's put his knowledge, his resources forward, and he's used it to the full effect, and he's replaced. We thought, Giakoumakis, Juranovic, a lot of people did last season. How are we going to replace them? Juranovic is as good as Tierney. He's Giakoumakis is like John Hartson reincarnated and stuff like that. And he's went out and he's surprised us again with getting and getting Alistair Johnston, and we all know how much Johnston's impressed us. So yeah, it's just another example of why we need to give him an extension of his contract and tie him down, because if we lose Ange, we potentially lose his contacts, his way that he signs players, his scouting network, lots of things. So yeah, I think it's just really, really important that we get him tied down.
Who's squealing?
It's a dog. It's a dog. I don't know what she is. Where are you?
Connor, you are the gift that just keeps giving, mate. Honestly, the absolute gift that keeps giving on this pod. I love it. Right, Johnny. I was out last night, unsurprisingly. But I didn't think I'd make it. We were at Liam McRandall's gig in Stirling at the Golden Lion Hotel. Wow, what a guy! I don't know if you've seen him do the grace before the Celtic Rangers game at the weekend. There's videos doing the viral rounds.
Yeah, I was watching it. Yeah,
absolutely sensational. What a lad!
Oh, that podcast you had done with him on it was one of the best pods that I've ever watched. It was brilliant. I'm just looking forward to part 2 when it comes.
Well, we're going to do part 2 in the close season, and I was chatting with him, and obviously I've now moved back to Stirling, so I'm a lot more centralised, as it were. A lot more, like, things are a lot more fluid now to be able to get out and about, because I don't drive. So when I was out in Fife, it was very difficult to sort of make plans that were...
Yeah, you did. You were out with the land that time forgot, weren't you?
That was a wee bit, let's be honest, mate. Where I stayed, there wasn't even a shop. Fuck me. But what I'm trying to say is I spoke with a guy called Vincent Coyle, who I've known for years, and he runs a Celtic bus from Vinny's Bar in Stirling. So we had a good wee chat. And we were like, look, he was like, oh, Boyce, he goes, love the pod and all that. He goes, I actually listened to it. And he was like, I think personally, because of the locality, we could literally get folk to get a train to Stirling, right in the centre, and we literally will give you a free Boyce bus to Vinny's Bar, and we could do a live show there this summer.
I think I know that Vinny's Bar.
It's popular. There's huge Celtic fans bus that goes for it. So that will be the plan. I'll speak to Vinny this week, hopefully, and we'll try and get an idea. And even if not, well, if not like a live event and all that, because probably got ahead of herself last year. Even if not, still doing something like, you know how like Open Goal, and I think Celtic Fans TV do one from like, is it Malone's in Glasgow? And you could put like Vinny's Bar in the corner. We could do a pre-recorded one from the setting of their pub. I think that'd be pretty cool as well. But Big Liam McRandall's, that version of Grace corner before the game, that's now something that's a mainstay, is it not?
Aye, it's brilliant. Obviously, I've seen the pod you did with Liam, and I've listened to some of his songs, and I've seen him do it live at Celtic Park. It's fantastic. He's brilliant. It's lovely. I don't know if we should get him in doing all the songs, before we kick off and stuff as well, and get him singing, You'll Never Walk Alone and stuff. That'd be excellent. But yeah, him, and obviously that was it, Ellie Dixon and what's his name, Big M's or something, the rapper who's now took to Celtic, and he's repping Celtic everywhere and wearing Celtic kits on stage and stuff. It kind of just goes to show.
Liam McRandall's featuring Snoop Dogg. What about that, mate? I see it.
That's the future. That's the future. That's the future right there. Don't know who.
I think on a serious note, there's the tie-ins that Celtic are doing with the likes of just a guy for Denny like Liam McRandall's, like just a normal average lad. Do you know what I mean? Sound as fuck, and now bringing him onto the part. I just think there's a connection that keeps it real. And then they're doing sensible moves, like you see a video going viral, like Jota on the Wing Johnny, right, by that girl. I can't remember her name; it escapes me right now. Just making a wee phone call, get her to play in the park as well. This shows me, in a weird way, Celtic are entering into now being a modern club. I think they were lost for a time, stuck in their old ways. Now it strikes me like the club is trying to make a connection again with what's actually going on around them, and not just relying on all the history and all that stuff. I think right now we seem to be evolving as a club, not just on the park, but off the park as well.
Do you think, I know it's sorry if I'm butting in, but teams now, like I think Everton, changed their walkout music. And I'm not saying you get rid of You'll Never Walk Alone, but it's a grand old team to play for. Do you think maybe, I don't know, we could maybe change up to something a bit more modern? I don't know.
What do I think of that? I don't know. I mean, I think that would be that's a toughie. What I would say though is, I just think adding extra features like they are by having Liam on in the last couple of years, by identifying there's a girl who's got a viral video singing Jota on the wing with an acoustic guitar. Sound, let's get her on the park before the game. Celtic weren't doing that even 4 or 5 years ago to me. It seems like, Johnny, do you know what I mean? They're trying to connect with the younger fan base again, and that's a good thing for me.
Of course, you've got to, because there's so much, and not just in football, every industry's got so much more competition for people's time and money. And you've got to modernise. You know, you can't just stand still. I mean, I know what you're saying, Connor, about it, but it used to wind me up. Even when I used to go to games back in the 90s, you know, Glenn Daly singing, you know, for It's a Grand Old Tune. I mean, I think modernise it. Get somebody else in to do it. You don't have to bin the song. Just modernise it and bring somebody else, like Liam, like they've done with Liam McGrandles, bring them in. But you've got to modernise. If any business that stands still is going backwards, and maybe they've finally clocked onto that. And they'll have people working in the commercial departments who we've got no idea who they are. They could sit on the bus next to you. But if they're coming in with modern ideas and bringing in these ideas through, they've got to do it because there's that much competition for people's time and coin these days, and they can only spread it so far.
That's true as well. I like that, Johnny, that attitude. I think we are evolving as a club. I think we're on the cusp here, Connor, without getting too hysterical, because I did always temper what I forecasted seeing this season was we'll be very close to a treble, if not winning a treble this year, right? But I said that will completely cover over what was a failed European campaign again, because we just get lost in the domestic thing, because it's 6 months of domestic bliss. And the European football, for only 2 months, that the pain of that kind of disappears pretty quickly, which I don't want to view Celtic as. I want us to be a club that uses Europe as a yardstick. But notwithstanding that, I do feel going into the summer, a real wave of optimism is around. I think when you look at yesterday and you see us not playing at our best, but still scoring 3 goals against your nearest rivals, effectively in a title decider, they had to win. They couldn't come away with a draw and have a chance. They had to win, Connor. They couldn't do it. We now look at, right, now we can start counting Champions League money. And by the way, there's been a ding-dong going on in the live chat between David Kelly and John Duncan about what Champions League money actually means. Good on them. But the bus is fair for debate. Nothing wrong with that. And you're more than entitled to do that in the live chat. I actually quite like to see that. But what we're seeing, Connor, regardless whether it's 40 million, 18 million, 20 million, whatever that Champions League money is, we can now count it again for another season. Okay? We can now then look at going, we don't need to sell an asset, but the likelihood is we will, because I think there will be fluidity in the transfer market, and use that exact word. I think there will be some shocks this summer in terms of selling, but I think we might, I don't know, I don't want to get over carried away, but I think we might see a wee surprise in terms of how aggressive we are in terms of our recruitment this year. For me, this is the summer where you go all out, or was it Terry says, you go, if they don't this summer, go for it. They never will. Because it's very rare you're in a position where you've got your rivals, and we could do a podcast dedicated to them and the state they're in, right? And when you've got them on their knees, not up to their knees, and we're in the position of strength that we are, it just feels to me the time is now, it's there. Go for it. Go for the jugular. The money, like everything seems to be in place in terms of manager, in terms of a very good nucleus of a squad, and also in terms of how much money and resources you've got to push the boundaries a bit. This has got to be the summer we've got to do it,
to me, you're right. This is the summer where Ange should be walking into the Champions League in front of them and putting these big balls on the table and saying, "Here they are. Have a look. Here we go. This is what we need to do. This is the way we need to go forward. We need to be aggressive, and we need to be take no shit in the transfer market, and that means with regards to what we get for players as well." And I know what I keep banging on about it. I don't want to see us letting some of the best players we've seen at Celtic in the past 10, 15 years go for peanuts. And look, you can only get what you're offered. However, if the offers aren't good enough, it doesn't mean you need to sell right away. You can hold on to them. They're on these long-term deals. They're here. If they don't like it, then that's too bad for them because they've signed the contracts. They're here, you know. But no, that's the way we need to go about it. I don't know if we're necessarily gonna be selling anybody because now there's stories that Jeremy Frimpong could be away to Man United, and we have a healthy sell-on clause for that. Kieran Tierney could be going to either, I think it's Man City or Newcastle. That's the two there. And I'd imagine we have a healthy selling fee there, especially because he's came right up from the academy. We didn't even, necessarily sign him. So, and that could be, if there's 30%, 20% on Tierney, whatever, that could be another 15 million,
15 million
possibly.
Yep.
So, we may not even need to sell any of our players. We can keep the nucleus of the squad intact and expand on it and have these players like Jota, McGregor even, stalwarts, Hatate, fighting for their places, not necessarily your names on the team sheet of the week, fighting for it, to play in the Champions League and to make an impact and to go for the jugular. So yeah, I think that's what we need to be doing this summer going forward, definitely.
I mean, David Kelly comes in, Johnny, and he tends to, he makes good points, and he's killing my buzz, David. What you doing, mate? And he's probably right, and I kind of tend to agree with him, annoyingly. He says, I will believe this board when they prove it. I'm a realist. I've seen too many years of Lawwell and how he approaches markets. He does not speculate. Even when Rodgers came in, that was Desmond. I mean, we'll find out this summer, Johnny. For me, I want to carry on the wave of optimism that I kind of said 6 months ago I didn't want to get carried away with, but I probably am now, because that's just how simpleton and conditioned I am to winning domestic trophies. Makes you as a Celtic fan. I do feel, though, if all the boxes were to be ticked for a blockbuster summer, well, this has to be the one, no?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Terry's right. Terry said it's now. It'll either happen this season or we can pack our bags and it'll never, because it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, what I want this season is, when you talk about ticking boxes, keep every single player that we've currently got that's important to the squad. I'm not talking about your people that we forget are even still there, like James McCarthy and that. You forgot he was there until somebody mentioned him the other day on the pod. And to make some, not necessarily blockbuster signings, but spend some serious money on some serious players. Don't ask me who or where they're going to come from, because I don't think any of us have been able to guess that since Ange walked through the door.
That's not even worth trying to guess.
All you'll do is give yourself a seizure if you try and figure that one out.
There's added incentive now, right, to really invest in for going for Europe, because we now have the Conference League, and before anybody says, you can't be just going for Conference League, it's still an added bonus, right? Because we can compete in the Champions League, we could even compete, to win the Europa League, but by God, we are fucking more than capable of winning that Conference League. By God, and that is a thing that, we've never really had before, because you look at some of the teams in that, and they're fucking wee diddy teams that couldn't have got a patch in Celtic. We got a scare by Bodo Glimt, but a few teams got a scare by the Conference League last year. But by God, there's that added incentive there, and now that would obviously require us to drop into that league as well, which we don't necessarily want. However, it is a little safety net there of European football that Celtic are more than good enough to compete in. And if we have the right players and the right investment, and just say we get put in a group of death with like Bayern Munich's, Barcelona's, Man City's and that, and we get papped to it, we've got that safety net, and we can, and what we're building with Ange now, obviously I think Conference League and Europa League kind of came a bit too soon for Ange with what he was trying to build at Celtic. But with now, this team with what they can do, they can more than compete for that. And obviously, I said before, I want this club to have fucking standards again. I want us to compete. I want us to go for it. If we get into the Europa League and we qualify out the Europa League groups, I want us to get to the fucking final. If we get into that Conference League, I want us to win the bastard. I don't want us just to compete and get to the last stages. I want us to win the fucking thing. I want the club to be one of the big dogs in Europe again. because
Yeah.
you know, Celtic are a big fish in a small pond. But when it comes to Champions League, traditionally, you know, we're a couple of guys in a rubber dinghy swinging about a giant ocean. But that doesn't mean we kind of go whale hunting and take a couple of scalps.
Well, I agree with that as well. I totally agree with that. I think, Johnny, the ambition for Europe will be always what Ange seen as part of his Celtic project. I think when he came to Celtic, it was, hold on here. Whilst they might be in a bit of disarray, I also sniff opportunity. And I think you looked at Celtic and gone, we could do something here. You could do something. That's a giant, a sleeping giant. I hate that terminology because it's quite generic. But at the same time, Celtic kind of are that, are they not? I think they are a club that hasn't imposed itself in Europe nearly enough as what they should over the last couple of decades. That could, of course, be aligned with spending restrictions that have came before. But when we look at where Celtic is at, off the park as well as on the park, this has to be an opportunity right now to go. Do you know? And you know what Connor's right to thing is, even a Conference League. No one wants to be in that competition, right? But your attention will change once it became a quarter-final. You know, suddenly, all right, actually, I'm quite glad we're here. And you do start going, wow, imagine a European final again, even if it was at that level. I think that would capture the imagination at the very least, albeit I still think the yardstick is Champions League. How can we do in that? Can we do better? Can we tool our manager up enough to make us far more convincing in that competition than we previously were?
Yeah.
You're right there, Johnny.
Yeah, but I was just checking and the wife's wondering about the house there. But yeah, no, you're right. This is going to be the best opportunity we've had in quite a number of years is to use your expression there, tool up and try and make an impact in the Champions League. And let's face it, Connor, if Rangers can get to that final last year, the Europa League, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it. Never mind dropping down the conference. I think we'll have a tough time in the Champions League if we want to try and look for, a little bit further ahead, depending on the teams we get. Champions League is going to be a tough ask. Just came on the screen is blank. No idea.
I don't know why.
We should be looking to compete at any level in Europe. We can compete at. The first option is going to be the Champions League. We're going to be in with some big guys again. We thought we had a good, favourable group last year. Didn't quite work out the way we'd kind of hoped it would do. Didn't get through to the Europa League. But like I said, if Rangers can get through the final last year, then there's absolutely no reason why the current Celtic team shouldn't be able to do it, especially when we improve it in the summer. Because we are going to improve things in the summer. There's no two ways about that. But this is definitely the best time or the best opportunity we've had in about 5-10 years of really doing something in Europe. Definitely. I mean, I'm old enough to remember in the Milan games going back into the 70s and 80s when we did compete with these sort of teams. When maybe I was just being daft as a youngster, but I expected to beat these teams when we were playing them. And I want to get Celtic back to that level where, not like you said, Connor, we're not just competing, we expect to win.
It's weird because as I always say, when I grew up in the 90s, we didn't fucking European football wasn't even on my horizon whatsoever. It was just try and get second for fuck's sake. I think in the 9 in a row they won. Put an asterisk beside it if you want. Who cares? I think we only finished second 3 out of those 9 years. Mm-hmm. Second, Connor, we only finished 3 out of 9. Right.
When Rangers fancy your leagues when you won them during the 9 in a row didn't count because we were shite. What about then? They don't like to mention that.
They don't want to look at that. Then it comes to the 2000s, and I'm with Johnny then. But so Johnny's going back to when he was growing up. But in my teens, I expected Celtic to beat whoever it was that came to Celtic Park. Didn't matter. I honestly didn't care. People will always talk about there being a huge gulf. We've done this comparison so many times, but don't tell me signing Scott McDonald for Motherwell, playing up against, Rio Ferdinand for Man United and scoring goals wasn't as big a gulf as what exists now. It is.
we've had two incarnations of Celtic go up against arguably the best teams in the world at that point and beat them both times. Gordon Strachan's team beat that absolutely incredible AC Milan side, and Neil Lennon's Celtic beat Barcelona at Celtic Park. Two legendary nights in football that will be remembered forever, especially by Celtic. So, the kind of, and look, we didn't beat them this season, right? But see, during that game at Celtic Park, right? This is what, see, because we got pumped, right? People don't remember. People just looking at the black and white saying, "Oh, we got beat 4-1, 3-1, 5-0." That first game at Celtic Park, after we just beat Rangers, played Real Madrid, that first half ended 0-0, and it should have probably been 1 or 2-0 Celtic. We were that good that first half, at least. Giakoumakis, I can't mind the player it was that was from Real Madrid. Giakoumakis had them on toast that much, right? And was giving him that much of a bother. He got subbed at half time. A Real Madrid player who had won the Champions League the previous year. That is the kind of standard that we should be going for all the time. And we should be competing, So I know it's difficult and people maybe just like to swallow it's a bitter pill to swallow that, we might not necessarily be competing anymore. But we should be striving for it. We should be aiming for it, Because this club is built on history and defying the odds and being the underdog but still finding a way. And that's what it is to be a Celtic fan. That's what it is to play for Celtic. Should be doing that all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Am I dead yet? He sums it all up. He remembers the AC Milan 2-1 game. Scott McDonald scores the winner. At that time, AC Milan were champions of Europe then. I mean, that team was unreal. Maldini, Nesta, who was in midfield, Seedorf, Kaká, Inzaghi up top. I mean, they were a shambles how good that side was. We were still going in then with the likes of who's in midfield there? It would have been a 35, 36-year-old Neil Lennon. It would have been Paul Telfer at right back. He was probably the same age. Gary Caldwell, a free transfer for Hibs. So the gulf is there. I mean, it's always been there, but the results we could still overcome. Now I think we're in a position where we can close whatever that massive gap and gulf is. We can still close it a bit now. We're in a position to do so. We're in a position of strength, and that right now is what we want to see Celtic do. It's been a fantastic Monday lunchtime edition. Thanks to Johnny. Thanks to the comedian Connor Carr on the top. He's on fire now. But it's been brilliant. I've been both I've enjoyed a wee afternoon beer with you, Johnny. Brilliant fun, mate. And I hope the two of you enjoy the rest of Easter Monday. As for those of you in the viewers, enjoy the rest of your Easter. Don't eat too much chocolate. Have a beer. It's great being a Celtic fan.
Cheers.
When you've all that stuff at the start, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.